Cool.
So anyways, welcome to the GI Resistance Working Group of Veterans for Peace and Courage to Resist. Everybody here knows that war has broken out in Europe, and it's a big deal, and millions of people are fleeing. And GI Resistance is at the center of it. So for the first time in a very long time, the powers that be think GI resistance is a good thing because we are against the Russians. And when Russian young men refuse to fight for the first time in a long time, people are supporting them. So of course, we have been ahead of the curve. We've supported GI resistance even before that. So we have a brief message from one of our allies, RUDI Friedrich of Connection EV. He's based in Germany, and he is part of the team trying to support war resistors from the 3 primary countries involved in the Russia-Ukraine war.
Hello, I'm so glad that I'm with you today. My name is RUDI Friedrich and I work for Connection, an association in Germany that has been supporting conscientious objectors and deserters for 30 years now. In the 1990s, for example, we accompanied various US able as we did during the war in Iraq as well. At present, of course, the most important issue for us is the war in Ukraine. Our self-concept is that we support conscientious objectors and deserters from all sides, on the Russian and Belarusian side, as well as on the Ukrainian side. At the moment, we do not know how many are evading recruitment to war in those countries, but it looks like it is more than thousands. You know, it is extremely difficult for refusers to escape recruitment to the military in a war. At the time where the human right to conscientious objection is particularly important, the government and the military undermine it, branding conscientious objectors as traitors. It is therefore not surprising that the situation for those affected is extremely difficult and that many are considering going abroad and seeking asylum. But I don't want to go into detail here. We have dealt with this in various articles, also in English. Because of the situation, we have taken various initiatives, which I would like to briefly present to you. 3 weeks ago, we were able to open a counseling hotline and publicize this, especially via social media. Through the counseling hotline and email address, the person can be reached that answers questions from affected conscientious objectors and deserters in Russian, English, and German. This is especially important so that there are no language barriers. At the same time, we have provided brief information for dissatisfied soldiers from Belarus, Russia, and Ukraine in German, English, and Russian. These include information on how the right to conscientious objection is organized in the respective countries, what options there are for evading recruitment, and advice on what to bear in mind when applying for asylum in Western European countries. We support the project No Means No of the Lithuanian-based Belarusian organization Nasz Dom. The organization has called on Belarusian men to refuse and reported that several thousand have already fled abroad. They want to establish a drop-in center, set up counseling centers, and provide legal support to the refusers in the asylum process. We also support the Ukrainian pacifist movement. The group, active in Ukraine, takes care of conscientious objectors and continues to actively oppose the war. We support the movement for conscientious objection in Russia. They have called to refuse the war and are going to establish a counseling center from Estonia. All 3 groups are being supported financially through our fundraising campaign. There are also contacts with groups in Finland, Georgia, Serbia, and Turkey. These, along with Lithuania and Estonia, are some of the countries that are accessible to fugitive recruits and military personnel from the war zone. The aim of the network is to give them advice and support so that they can develop a new perspective. We are continuing to develop this network. We are working in strong connection with other peace organizations and refugee organizations in Germany and abroad. A few days ago, together with about 50 other organizations, we were able to submit a motion to members of the German parliament on the protection of deserters and conscientious objectors from Russia, Belarus, and Ukraine. We are planning to launch such an initiative at the European level as well. We are receiving a lot of encouragement for our work, and I'm very pleased that you are also interested. I show our website here in the hope that you will find ways and means to support our campaign from the US as well. That would make us really happy. That concludes the short report from Offenbach. Hope to see you soon.
You gotta refuse, don't be another bite. So when they tell you to go, just say no.
All right.
All right, so that was Rudy. We worked with Rudy for starting with a case of Andre Shepard, who was a US soldier who has taken refuge in Germany for the last 15 years in opposition to the Iraq War, and has settled down in Germany. And there's a lot of unique, refugee asylum cases, and trying to force the German government to accept a US war resistor, conscientious objector, per EU dictates, but still they very much did not want to do so. And basically it would upset the US.
Oh, well, I had a comment on your comments initially. I didn't get the impression that the media was really publicizing like Russian soldiers refusing, because I thought that the general concept of soldiers having agency and refusing was not something they wanted to promulgate. So
I guess I see more than
I haven't
zero.
noticed that. Huh?
I guess I've been looking for it. It's gone from
I've seen it,
more than zero to something. So I guess
in the mainstream,
in the mainstream
corporate media. Okay.
And you have the US government talking about that such being a great thing. Troops refusing to do bad things, refusing to invade countries.
Okay, good.
Yeah, so right. It's like on the one hand, that's great, right? But anyways.
This topic we're talking about, I'm extremely excited about the prospects of resistance in other places, and the prospects of what the different support efforts that are happening. I think in many of the I think in Europe, there's going to be a lot more receptiveness already. And I'm hoping it may spark even bigger questions. There are still several countries in Europe that still maintain conscription in some way. And so I think that this being pressed in a very immediate nature in Russia, Ukraine, and Belarus, it also may spark some questions in other parts of Europe that are still have conscription. And I think also some possibilities, there may be some countries hoping to revive it in light of recent events. And so I think there might be a lot of possibilities for a partnership and work. What that'll look like, I don't know, but I'm really excited about it.
This past weekend, we had a memorial for Bob Mule, longtime Courage Resist organizer activist who died last year. Very nice memorial service here in Berkeley for him. We had like almost about 150 folks out here in Berkeley.
Wow.
Spent the day remembering him, meditating, listening to music. So it was pretty nice.
Awesome.
Definitely makes, I don't know, it's the kind of memorial that you leave feeling like, I want to be a better person. I don't know. It really it was really in all aspects of that, not just purely in doing good deeds either, but just in living life fully. I don't know. It was a really oddly a very inspiring memorial service.
Agreed.
He was a GI rights hotline counselor for a couple of years too, among his many other contributions.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, he was. And like many GI rights counselors, he got frustrated by talking to people who didn't really want to get out of the military and who just wanted.
What he told you?
You know,
What did they want?
people, people go through all this training to be a GI rights counselor, and then like, oh, not enough people actually want to get out. They just want a slightly less worse deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also having Daniel Ellsberg speak at the memorial, the recording was just amazing.
Yeah.
And just what Daniel said, I don't know, that was just one of the most moving memorials I've ever been to be honest. It was just a lot of heart.
Is everyone still here, or have I ran everyone off trying to get logged in?
No, we'll wait for you.
Still here.
No,
Okay, well, hello everyone.
Hi.
Hey, Kevin. Kevin, thanks.
Got Bill.
Yeah, thanks for being on with us today.
Hey, Kevin. Yeah.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Like James was saying, we all very much appreciated the podcast episode you did with us, and that's still available if people want to check that out. But we want to say thank you for your courage to resist. Stephanie,
go ahead.
No. Stephanie just wanted to know more after listening to that podcast, so we had to invite you on.
Oh well, feel free to ask. I'll try to answer with the most truthful answer. So.
All right, not too truthful though.
Yeah, not too truthful. You can't handle the truth. Oh, wait a minute. No.
I cannot. No.
But sure, anybody who wants to know anything, I mean, they can ask. Like I said, I'll try to give them a straight answer. So.
All right. Okay.
Well, I have questions for you, Kevin. First of all, I've listened to a lot of those podcasts, and you're my favorite. And also, we just recently been tied with. I edited Hart Vigus, and I don't know if you've listened to his, but it's also very powerful. And but like James, here in the South in your mouth, it's very consoling for me. I got questions for you. You were in did you go to the first Gulf War? You got out in 91, right? The first time?
Yeah, I was in from 87 to 91, but I didn't get deployed. A lot of the people from the unit that I was in got deployed over there, but I didn't go.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, they had a thought we were filling out the wills, getting all the vaccinations, and getting all the paperwork, crossing all the T's and dotting all the I's. And by the time I had all that stuff done, it was over with.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, it went for 3 weeks officially.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They didn't need everyone over there, and I had a different MOS at that time anyway. I was what they call a veterinary food inspection specialist. I was working in the medical field. I worked in the commissary. Basically, I did sanitary inspections of the commissary and made sure that all the products that we got in weren't damaged or out of date. Quality control, really.
Right. When you got out the first time, you enlisted, how many, there were years that went by and then you re-upped, and what happened in between that time that made you decide to re-up?
Well, I had gotten out, and before I went in, I learned how to do floor covering installations, like carpet, hardwood, ceramic tile, that kind of thing.
Yep.
And when I got out, I started working for myself as a subcontractor, doing that kind of work. I built it up to where I had about 2 trucks running full time with 2 crews, and I was about to get a lot of work coming in because this guy was a commercial job and he wanted me to do a library for him. But anyway, basically what it boils down to is that I always had finding reliable labor to do that kind of work. So that's why I decided to sell that off, and then I re-entered the military after that. I went into Luby's cafeteria as a manager, but cafeteria management just wasn't my speed. So I re-entered the military at that time.
Wow. Financial.
Well, not so much financial. It was just in the military. I mean, really, you're part of a team, but you're only relying mostly on yourself. If you understand what I'm trying to say, you don't have to have if you're working for yourself, you got to rely on everybody to show up and to be reliable. But the military is more. I mean, even though they describe it as a teamwork thing, which a lot of the stuff you have to do requires teamwork, but for your individual advancement and job security, I guess you could say, you don't have to worry about other people and rely on other people to, help you maintain that. Just your individual effort is what gets you advanced or not. So.
Yeah.
Kevin, I was trying to remember when you had to do time and confinement. Where did you have to do that at?
Fort Lewis, Washington, at the Regional Correctional Facility.
What was your time like there?
That place was something else. I mean, it was an old building and a lot of water leaks, and they thought they were at, I don't know, some of those guards and the chief jailer there thought they were at either Rikers Island or San Quentin or some hardcore prison, but it was, they had a few people that were in there for violent crimes, but most of them were in there for, I don't know, just stupid stuff. I mean, there was one guy that he used to be a pharmacy tech, and he got caught selling too many of the drugs out of the warehouse for the pharmacy. So, he had his own prescription drug business going. But they eventually caught him. So, I mean, that was basically what it was. I mean, it was a big dog and pony show in there too, because the Fort Lewis RCF was originally designed for non-judicial punishment soldiers to go back in there and get remedial training, just like a couple of weeks or a few weeks or a few months of basic training, because you're going back into the Army. And I'm like, you people are crazy. You want me to stand at attention when you walk in the room and all this other stuff? I said, you gave me a dishonorable discharge. Why should I play that game with you if y'all are going to throw me out of the Army like this? After lying to me and putting me through this kangaroo court of a trial.
Yeah, that particular RCF is a shithole and has been for a long time, to be honest. I was up there visiting a few clients a few years after you were there, and they were making a big to-do about it, recently remodeled. But it was actually the worst military prison I've ever visited. And it was astonishing to me. That was what it looked like after it had been remodeled. I kept thinking about how bad it must have been before that, because it was absurd. I mean, it just fall apart, to be honest.
Well, I don't know what it looked like after they remodeled it, because when I left that place, I never looked back. But it was in really bad shape. There were sewer lines dripping in the hallways where everybody had to walk through to get the other part of the prison. I mean, that was right outside the jail cells there. A lot of the windows wouldn't close fully. And you're familiar with Fort Lewis, Washington. It gets pretty chilly up there in January and February. So, I mean, that was a little rough. And then they only give you just a one small blanket and want you to stay warm with all that. So it was just as big a joke as the trial I went through, if you want to know the truth. The whole process was unbelievably stupid.
Yeah.
Hey, Kevin, you can't see this, but I have a photo, that's taken outside of Fort Lewis while you were imprisoned. And we got dozens of people across the freeway there holding a very large Free Kevin Benderman from St. Louis brig sign. So I know you enjoyed a lot of support there in the Olympia, Fort Lewis area from civilian activists and whatnot. But I don't want to, in case somebody's just like listening to this, in your own words, how'd you end up in the Fort Lewis brig? I don't think we touched on that, in case people haven't heard your podcast yet.
How did I wind up there? Well, I had applied for conscientious objector after coming back from my deployment to Iraq, which lasted through the end of 2003. And I made a decision based on what we did there and everything they were lying about on the news. When I did get a chance to see the news, I was like, they are whitewashing or telling everybody back home a straight up lie, because we're not doing any of that stuff. They had us guarding oil wells, just harassing people elderly people, grandparents, and at all hours of the morning, they're over there trying to portray us as some kind of great liberator of the oppressed people of Iraq, and hell, we were one knocking their door down at 3 o'clock in the morning, dragging grandma and grandpa out of bed, and didn't give a damn about how the kids were scared or who else was bothered in the process. We were bringing them democracy. And so that was a large part of the reason why I said, you know what, this is all based on a bunch of lies. It's all a bunch of bullshit. And I'm not going back over there. I never believed that I would be asked to do anything like this as a professional soldier in the United States Army. I just couldn't do it.
Thanks,
Kevin. I was in the Fort Lewis Stockade from March to May of 1970. And there was kind of a culture of resistance in there. That was happening throughout the country in a lot of places. So I was just wondering, when you were there, whether other prisoners were sympathetic to what you had done, or whether you're able to talk to a few people or many people about what you've done, or what they probably knew what you had done one way, even if you hadn't told them.
This time around was a whole lot different than the 70s.
Oh yeah.
Most of the people that were in there now, they just didn't care. They wanted to do their time and go to the house. I mean, some of them knew about my, I guess I call it notoriety. Some people say fame, but anyway. I was able to get in contact with what was that congresswoman's name out there in Washington State? I can't, but she sent an aide over after I called my wife, ex-wife now, Monica, and told her about some of the conditions that I ran into there. And they kind of looked at me like I was just somebody that could cause grief for the head of the jail, and the guards. They didn't really care about the impact of what my statement was in trying to say that we shouldn't invade countries illegally. Most of them, I don't want to sound too, anyway, a lot of them they didn't think on that wave level. a lot of them were just worried about what's coming on TV next.
Yeah.
You know, the level of social awareness and social consciousness has sure changed quite a bit from the ending days of the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
That's just
Kevin,
my opinion of it.
Stephanie.
No, yeah.
one of the things I remember from back then was they were not letting people write to their members of Congress. And when you pointed this out, I think you got Cynthia McKinney involved, and they claimed that they acknowledged that people did have the right to contact their members of Congress, but they just didn't have enough paper for people to write letters to their members of Congress. And so, as I recall, thanks to you, Cynthia McKinney sent a ream of paper to the prison with the instructions that this paper is for prisoners to write to their members of Congress.
Well, I don't think I ever heard that story, but it is kind of funny. I mean, she should have sent them another box or two and tell them to let them do what they need to do. But I don't know. I think I might influence one or two in there to maybe take notice and do some different things. But like I said, I think the majority of the people that I served time with were just wanted to do their time and go on. Their social consciousness was no more than what they were going to watch on ESPN next, unfortunately, but that's just the way I perceived a lot of them.
Hey, Kevin, you can't see this, but I have a photo up of you walking out of the courthouse, and I believe it's right after your sentence was handed down. I guess it's the one that you find pretty easily if you Google your name. And yeah, I was wondering, what do you recall about that moment? How are you feeling? You've been told that you're going to go to prison for 15 months for basically following your conscience and trying to do what's right according to international law. And you're going to pay a price for that.
Well, again, the biggest thing, I guess you could say, was the disbelief I felt that my country, who I've always heard preach, truth, justice, and the American way, was just stomping all over that concept. Because I told the truth, and there was sure no justice in what they did to me. I mean, it was just disbelief that they were doing it.
I've looked at some of your other interviews and things that you've written or responded to in the past, and the stories that you told about passing the little girl, and some of the more graphic things that you described when you talk about seeing dogs eat corpses, and the way that people responded to you is just like, oh yeah, well, okay. It's like, this man has just told us that he witnessed something horrifying and graphically told us. And it's like journalists and other people, they're just like, it just seems like, I don't know how to explain, but it's frustrating to me that people can report on that blithely and just be like, well, that's just war, or that's just how it is, or, did you find yourself being frustrated when you're trying to explain how you became a conscientious objector, not just to people in your command, but, just civilians and people that you were, journalists that you were speaking to, because we can all identify and understand that shit's horrifying. And for it to just be reported on like, well, that's just what that is, sort of thing. Do you know what I'm asking for?
I believe so. You want to know why I think people can just be so blasé about these things?
I mean, yeah, and just how for you, this is an accumulation of experience, and where you're putting everything on the line, and it's like other people respond as if it weren't a thing, and I just wondered how you felt about that when you were trying to articulate that.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I may not have had this exact formulation of this thought at the time, but I knew of kind of I was up against Jerry Springer Nation. I mean, our country has gone from, I remember watching Phil Donahue, and I don't know if any of y'all ever watched any of his shows, but when Phil Donahue first came out with his talk show, he tried to have serious questions about serious subjects and handle it in a serious manner.
Mm-hmm.
And then America went from that to Jerry Springer and Maury Povich. And I think a large segment of our society is part of Jerry Springer Nation. I mean, they will only look for the macabre, bizarre parts of our society, and that entertains them, and you won't ever get them to be concerned about anything serious.
Mm-hmm.
Now, whether that's bad or good, that's a conclusion anybody else going to make. But I just think that's an observation I've made about our society. You just like when people go vote, not everybody registers and not everybody votes. Only half of the doggone people are concerned about voting, And even if they're registered, they may not always go because this is just my opinion. I don't want to get too far off the subject matter, but after seeing these last few clowns that they offered us up as job candidates for president, I'm like, why would I hire either one of them?
Mm-hmm.
Biden voted to send us to Iraq with George Bush, so that's a big black mark on his record for me. And Donald Trump, well, I mean, he's just a clown. So he's always been a clown. Anyway, we won't go too far down that subject, but
No,
I just had to say that.
I know. I don't think you'll find any argument here.
Mm-hmm.
And one question I've thought about a lot as far as for you and for the other resistors from that time period, we're now 10, 12 or so years out. And I think for you and for others I've spoken to, the years after your experience have not been easy. And I was wondering if you have any thoughts for the activist world, what can be done to make that transition easier for resistors, but also just any thoughts you have for people considering the path you went on, as far as what do they need to know, having their eyes wide open about the whole everything,
Well, if they want to follow as a conscientious objector or just an outright opposition to an illegal war, I mean, there's two different ways that you can handle it. And legal framework, I believe, are trying to have a legal opposition to an illegal war is the deck will be stacked against you. Excuse me. But as far as that someone chooses to make the decision of a conscientious objector, just know that unless you suddenly sprout angel wings out of your back, you are going to be met with fierce resistance from whatever service you're in. And I would give the advice to a young person before they have to go register for the selective service that they need to have the documentation prior to that showing that they want to file as a conscientious objector when they have to register for selective service. Mm-hmm. That would be the best way to handle that situation. But you have to reach them when they're young to get them to make sure that that's what they want to do. Mm-hmm. But I don't know if I answered your question correctly, but if you're talking about someone, go ahead.
No, you did. I mean, the only thing I was going to ask, though, as far as in situations where someone is not, in other words, tries to navigate the system through the legal way, it doesn't work. They end up, I guess my concern is long-term, how can our movement support people to make the transition back to civilian life? Because I don't know. That's something that keeps pressing on my mind. That it's for a lot of folks. It's a really hard transition. Even I think, especially sometimes when what you did it for the right reasons, but the system doesn't, isn't going to reward you for that, and society doesn't always understand it. And I don't know. I just wondered if, long term, how do we support people in the transition, if that makes sense.
Well, one, just you're gonna have to let the people come to it as they do, if you understand what I mean. I mean, a lot of people may still be confused and trying to sort out all their thoughts and emotions and what they're feeling to get it straight in their own head before they're able to talk to anybody else about it. Well, they can help them to understand. But just be there, I guess, and if they need any kind of moral support, or if they wind up homeless because of that, I think a big thing would be to do is to make sure that we get as many of them off the streets as possible. Because if they do choose to go this route, a lot of them will fall into depression or rage, and you just got to make sure that you're willing to listen and, maybe talk to some psychologists or some counselors that can give some tips on how to best handle someone going through that situation. I mean, but it's going to affect everybody individually. So just be willing to listen and help them as they ask for it.
Hey, Kevin, I just want to thank you, for taking the time and doing the podcast and then doing this little meeting with us. Very much appreciate it. And hope you can stay in touch with us.
Oh, you're very welcome. I'm sorry I wasted so much of your time at the beginning, and
all that will be fixed in post-production, so no problem.
Well, I could stay here and talk with you guys for a while, but if y'all need to go, I mean.
Well, I want to give you an opportunity if there's anything you forgot to mention, anything you forgot to plug, not.
Not this particular time. I mean, I would just say that, well, one thing too is that, well, I was kind of disappointed when Obama convinced everyone to let Bush slide, and everyone just seemed to go along with what he said. Because I believe there was a huge momentum that we might have been able to keep pushing to get some accountability to the Bush administration. But as soon as Obama came out and said, "Oh, don't look back. We can't worry about what happened yesterday. I'll fix everything." And well, okay, that's where we are now. We lost that momentum. I don't think we should let any presidential candidate convince us that he's going to do the right thing. Because I haven't seen many of them do that in my lifetime. But like I said, that's a whole different subject.
Yeah, it sort of goes back to how we started this meeting, right? You have global condemnation of a dictator / president in Russia illegally invading another country without any justification, right? And if we had that same kind of global condemnation of the US's illegal attack in Iraq, we don't know what would have happened, but sure it would have been a lot more consistent as far as taking stands against imperial aggression against others. Anyways, yeah, thanks, Kevin.
Yeah, there's a large amount of hypocrisy there, and thank you for having me on.
Yeah. All right, so this is the end of our GI Resistance Working Group meeting and the beginning of our Courage Resist business meeting. Hey, Jules.
Before I go, I just want to say that the beginning part by Rudy I think there's a lot to think about there about what we can do in the U.S. and maybe you're going to meet about that as you meet right now, but or for Vets for Peace as well. See you all.
Yeah, we do want to figure out a way to give them some financial support, I guess, specifically right now.
Well, I'll tell you what, if y'all invite me back for another one of these, I'll see about having a working headset and do video next time.
Fair enough.
But it was good speaking with all of you.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks, Kevin.
All right, y'all have a good evening.
You
Bye,
too.
Jules.
Bye, guys.